So if the original Assassin's Creed game was the fake-looking chick at the club that basically photoshops herself, then this game is the much younger sister who can be a Victoria's Secret model. Holy shit, I can't think of any game that has ever improved this much in its sequel. They literally listened to every criticism leveled at the first game, and they went out and they fixed each and every complaint people had. You hear that, YouTube auditor? So when I tell you to go fuck yourself, maybe you should listen and take that advice. Now, in yesterday's video, I detailed what pretty much every critic said about the original Assassin's Creed game, in which it was repetitive and it was mundane. It also tricked the fuck out of people with a deceptive demo that had none of the elements in the final portion of the game. So when Assassin's Creed 2 was announced, my instinct was to wait on the game. I had fun in the first game, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't completely sold on the series yet. I wanted to like the series. I wanted to give it a chance since the concept of the game certainly had massive potential, but the execution was utterly fucking flawed. So when the reviews mentioned that all the things in Assassin's Creed 2 were fixed, my interest peaked when the reviews and multiple scores showed that the game did actually improve, and those who played it for the first time even said massive improvements were made. I went ahead and I bought the motherfucker. However, much like a few games I purchased before Christmas in 2009, early 2010, the motherfucker sat on my shelf for months before I actually played it. The week before Assassin's Creed 2 released, some small indie game that came out that you guys may or may not have heard of, it was called Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. As I said in some earlier videos, I played Modern Warfare 2 incessantly for months, and I only stopped to play Final Fantasy 13 for a few weeks. Such a stupid fucking idea. But anyway, after I finished Final Fantasy, I promptly returned back to Modern Warfare 2 to complete all the challenges of the game, and I'm going to talk about that in the video when I get to Modern Warfare 2 in the future. But on a side note, I could probably do 30-minute video alone just on Call of Duty games during my Goodbye PlayStation 3 series, because that's how much shit I have to talk about in those games. But in any event, the collection of games that sat on my shelf for months is staggering. I had a trio of amazing games on my shelf for months before I actually played them. God of War 3 was one of them, BioShock 2 was the other, and Assassin's Creed 2 was the third and final game. After I finished up Modern Warfare 2, did everything I wanted in the game, that's the order in which I played them in. God of War, BioShock, Assassin's Creed 2. Since the other two games produced better prequels than Assassin's Creed, I went with those first. God of War was nothing like a shooting game, so I wanted to get away from Modern Warfare 2 and first-person games, so I went with that first. Then I went with BioShock, since I knew that would take less time to complete than Assassin's Creed 2, and finally I came to this game. I waited 11 full months before I actually played it. No, really, I waited until October of the next year to start playing this, and it was the last game I completed right before Black Ops 2 came out. So that gives you an idea of how long it took for me to get into this motherfucker. But after playing it, I can say without question, this is the best Assassin's Creed game of the group. Everything that the original should have been, or should have included, or should have incorporated, this game did. We have a new hero here, Ezio, who this time starts from the very beginning of his assassin hunt. Unlike Altair, who was already a badass, Ezio has no idea of his lineage, and he had to learn how to be an assassin. So this time around, the story makes sense in how you progress into a badass. You see how his family was killed for being assassins, and the goal of the game is for Ezio to avenge his family. So each assassination, each mission, leads him to the top guys that he wants to kill. It makes him stronger, and of course, ties into the current storyline with Desmond. Gotta remember, all these assassin games tie into the memories of Desmond, who is still in the present time. They even managed to tie in some famous families and characters from that time. Leonardo da Vinci was used, Niccolo Machiavelli, the Borgias, the Pazzis. They also tied in significant historical elements, albeit stretching the truth just a little bit. Just a little bit. But in the end, it all works. Story-wise, it's excellent. Gameplay-wise, everything was improved. Now, the motherfucker can swim. Seriously, I had a hard time believing that Altair could climb the highest fucking building of the time without any safety equipment, jump off the top into a bale of hay without a scratch, and he would die in 4 fucking feet of water. Give me a goddamn break, man. Here, it's fixed. Ezio can swim. End of story. Another thing that was added was the whole desynchronization for doing things wrong. In the first game, you could do everything wrong and still pass missions or assassinations. Now, you needed to do things in the correct order. Although, I'm going to talk more about synchronization crap in the future videos, but for now, there is a penalty for not doing things in a certain order or the correct order. That's a big improvement. The investigation process was also simplified, where you didn't need to do 6 fucking things in order to be allowed to kill someone. Just do a task, do it right, and you complete the mission. It was a simple and effective process. Currency has more meaning in this game where you can buy more shit. Plus, you can upgrade the surrounding countryside area around the assassin villa or whatever the fuck that thing was. The more improvements you make to the villa, the more money you put in your own pocket to buy shit. The side quests and collectibles all had purposes. Even the weaponry was improved. You know, in the first game, you just needed to learn the counter button, and the shittiest sword in the game would have been enough to beat the game. Now, the improved swords go towards your ability and even the mechanics and how you kill enemies. So, that was a minor, noticeable improvement. They added the catacombs, which allowed for more exploration and platforming puzzles that were meant to give some of the best upgrades. Almost every aspect of this game was improved top to bottom. Notice, I said almost, because there are a few gripes to detail with this bitch. First gripe, Ubisoft. What the fuck were you thinking with PC? Holy shit! PC players may remember that this game was to constantly be online in order to play this motherfucker to avoid piracy. Ubisoft instituted DRM for this game, so the only way to initially play it was to be online all the time. If you lost your connection for some reason, you lost your progress. Now, I don't know if Microsoft paid attention to this shit a few years ago, but fans backlashed like a motherfucker against this decision. Yeah, Microsoft thought it was a good idea for a whole fucking console. Who knows what the fuck they were thinking or smoking. But in any event, it took a shitload of time, but eventually Ubisoft dropped that idea that you needed to be permanently connected online. However, the damage was done. The console versions of the game just needed people to have a Uplay account or a passkey to access the game, or whatever the fuck, man. Part of that was to combat the secondary market of used games. Either way, the PC version of always being connected was fucking stupid. It drove people away from the game, not purchasing the game until that shit was removed. And even then, some people didn't even bother after a while, because what's the purpose of buying a game on PC brand spanking new when you could wait a few months until the summer Steam sales for games to go down in price? Ultimately, Ubisoft's decision to use DRM cost them massive sales on PC. Another bullshit thing this game did to its fans was the missing chapters. When the game launched, it came with something like 13 or 14 or 15 chapters. I don't know, I don't remember. It was something decent. However, towards the end of the game, there were two main chapters missing from the game. Instead of being in the game, they were later used as paid DLC. Now, here's my thing. I don't mind paid DLC. I never have and never will. I prefer free DLC, of course, but if you give me good content at a good price, I'll work with it. But don't fucking tell us ahead of time that there were two potential chapters that should have been in the game that you didn't have time to complete, and now you will add them as extra paid content? Get the fuck out of here with that shit. If anything, you should have removed the portions that made it seem like they were extra chapters and then released them as DLC. Nobody would have known. Had Ubisoft never shown us there were two incomplete chapters, we wouldn't have had a fucking clue, and the DLC wouldn't have been seen as customers paying for developers' disregard for a deadline. You get some brownie points for being honest in that there were two parts of the game that weren't completed on time, but then you go out and charge us for that shit. It's like ordering up an ice cream sundae and not being told that hot fudge and sprinkles are included. Only when you go back and ask for the hot fudge and sprinkles, you're told they forgot to add them when you first got your ice cream, but now you have to pay extra for it. Fuck you, man. Give me my motherfucking sprinkles, bitch. Now, I didn't buy the two stories for the DLC because, you know, fuck it, that's the general principle. I'm not buying that shit. I wasn't going to buy something that should have been part of a $60 product. But anyway, for those who bought that shit, almost any person who played the stories will tell you the same thing. It has no real impact on the main storyline. Sure, it was nice to have the extra content. Sure, it was cool to use the Bonfire of the Vanities historical event, tie that into Assassin's Creed 2. But neither story was absolutely necessary to advance the plotline. Even if we had that in the game, it probably would have just been used as some filler for the main storyline. Essentially, these two stories feel like DLC spin-off content that should not have wholly impacted the story at all. And again, I have no issue with Ubisoft charging people for content, but they made the mistake of telling people that it almost made it into the final product, and they left a placeholder in the game to show there's a missing content chapter. You know, the game was perfectly fine without the whole corrupt files can't access these chapters kind of shit that they threw in the Desmond storyline. You know, had they just taken that shit out of the game, charged you for the DLC whenever they rolled it out down the road in the future, people would have been fine with that. But instead, you make it look like you fuck up, and then you make people pay for your fuck-ups. You don't think fans aren't gonna get pissed over that? Of course they got pissed, including someone like me who played this shit 1 year later. Now, the final thing to mention that just throws this motherfucker all off is the whole first people Desmond story crap. And this is where the shit really took a left-hand turn. Now, we were foreshadowed in the first game that the Templars were after something powerful and that it was around during earlier human history. We saw that Altair found the apple and saw its amazing power. But where the game goes apeshit is the final scene where Ezio gets into this magical temple, whatever the fuck it is, and Minerva pops out and starts talking to Desmond. Ezio is fucking lost. He has no goddamn clue what the fuck's going on. Desmond is wondering how the fuck she knows to talk to him in the first place, and this whole 2012 thing that was shown at the last game is now in motion. He needs to stop him. Honestly, man, they could have just stuck to going back into Desmond's memories for some cool stories or whatever the fuck, but no. They had to go and fuck it up with this crazy-ass bullshit that doesn't even make half a Moose Knuckles worth of sense. I know the developers wanted something different in the game. I know they wanted to show that Desmond's storyline has a much bigger connection to these past assassins, and that the impact of the 2012 event was something significant. What I don't get is how they came to this conclusion that they needed these strange, godlike motherfuckers to explain these events. I don't know if this was something planned out from the start or if they just pulled a Lost on us. Oh man, does everyone remember that TV show? For those of you that don't know, Lost was a TV show that started about 10 years ago now. Holy shit, man, I can't believe it's been that long. But anyway, started about 10 years ago. The very first season of that show was probably the greatest pieces of television ever created. Ever. It was that damn good. They introduced all these amazing mysteries, but the problem was the writers had no way of explaining how these mysteries came about. So over the course of the next 5 years of the show, they half-assed the explanations to all the mysteries and then came up with some really weird shit on how to explain it. You just kind of sat there wondering, how do we go from all these mysteries of Season 1 to these shitty explanations we got in Season 6? And the writers have said over the years, they just kind of tossed out ideas to see if it sounded cool, and they figured they would come up with a solution down the road. Most of those solutions were either incredibly stupid, utterly fucking ridiculous, or in some cases, they just didn't resolve it at all. And I feel like that's sort of what happened here with Assassin's Creed. They showed an event was going to happen in 2012, yet Altair finds this magic apple or whatever the fuck, and that's supposed to prevent the event from occurring. It's a great idea, but now you have to explain that shit. So the Assassin's Creed writer's explanation? Magic people. Oh man, what the fuck is going on here, man? I can't imagine at the start of Assassin's Creed that their whole explanation for the shit was going to be an event in 2012 about these fucking forerunners, whatever they wanted to call these people, the four people. Well, I don't know what the fuck they wanted to call them. It just seems like they didn't have a logical way of explaining the idea without it being too corny. So instead of cheesy and corny, they went with 100% utter bullshit. Yeah, much better choice, motherfucker. Now, regardless of all the bullshit this game had, this is still a damn good game. I mean, it won a number of Game of the Year awards for a reason, because it was that good. And it certainly improved upon its predecessor. The difference between this game and the prior game is night and day. And thankfully, all the things that were wrong in the original Assassin's Creed were fixed in Assassin's Creed 2. The developers listened to the critique, took it as a challenge, and went out and created one amazing game. I personally enjoyed the shit out of this game. And this is the game that kept me coming back to the franchise for a long time, knowing that they can always improve upon what they did. Now anyways, tomorrow, I'm going to start the video talking about Inception. For those who didn't watch the movie, and you wonder what the fuck that has to do with Assassin's Creed, either go out tonight, watch the movie, or go over to Wikipedia and read the Cliff Notes. Because Inception is going to be a big part of tomorrow's start to the video. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.